Okay, thank you very much for staying with us. I want to begin this morning engaging with this news report of the number of Nigerians that we can expect to, or rather, the number of Nigerian deportees that Nigeria is expecting from the United States. This report says federal government is ready to welcome deported Nigerians from the United States. According to NIDCOM, the report says the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission has said that the federal government is ready to welcome Nigerians deported from the United States of America. The Director of Media and Corporate Affairs of the Commission, Abdulrahman Balogun, disclosed this to Vanguard on Tuesday evening, January 28. He added that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was in charge of such development. Balogun further said the federal government had already set up an interagency committee to handle the matter should Nigerians be deported from the United States. About 3,690 Nigerians in the United States are faced with deportation as Donald Trump cracked down on illegal immigrants in the country. So, think of that number, 3,690. There is a document that has been making the rounds on social media, purportedly from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And of course, this department, this institution has become notorious in a sense, or rather has become, everywhere, has become ubiquitous now because it appears to be making the news everywhere, not only in the United States but all over the world. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, popularly called ICE, in the United States. And there are so many memes now on social media, and you find so many funny videos everywhere of people running away from ICE officials of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the United States, and so many humorous takes on that. You find some videos, workers hiding in unexpected places from these officials of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So there's a document that's been making the rounds. This document purports to tell the number of deportees per country. According to this document, I've not verified the authenticity of this document, but it is reproduced there as well. According to this document, it says, question, how many individuals on the non-detained docket have final orders for removal? So this is a document that purports to show the number of individuals who have been ordered to be removed from the United States are being there in the United States illegally. Afghanistan has 1,708. According to this document, there are 1,708 people from Afghanistan who are in the United States unlawfully, or rather who have been ordered by the court to be removed from the United States. So there will be many more. So this is just a subset. These are people who have been ordered to be removed, but who have not been removed. You know that, there is a lot of politicking involved there, or rather there is substantial differences in political thinking informing whether an administration will carry this out or not. There are 1,874 citizens of Albania, 306 people from Algeria, and a long list like that going all the way. And for Nigeria, it says Nigeria 3,690. Mexico 252,044, and of course that's understandable because Mexico shares a border with the United States, so it is easier for people like that to just cross into the United States. You're going to find on the whole that you have many more people from South America. South America is of course close to the United States, which is in North America. And that speaks a lot to how you can have in the same region prosperity on one side and the lack of it or the absence of it on the other hand. The reason why I'm bringing up this story really is to talk about why, for many people in Nigeria, it is difficult for them, for many people in Africa rather, it is difficult to appreciate an administration like that of Donald Trump, notwithstanding that he has taken many positions that align with the Christian worldview. And you find that even many Christians in Nigeria and Nigerians who are in the United States, they do not enthusiastically support an admission like that. And sometimes you raise the question and say, look, but why? But the other administration or the other alternative is supportive of viewpoints that do not align with the Christian worldview. Notwithstanding, you find pushback, and it is not unrelated to the issue of immigration, because the reality, as many people will tell you, is that there are so many of our brothers and our sisters from Africa who are there in the United States illegally. There are people who have been living there illegally for 30 years, who have married, who have settled, who are contributing, to be frank, contributing to the economy there. But of course, from a legal point of view, that does not remove from the fact that they are there illegally. What's the bigger point here? The bigger point is that one's personal interest would often cloud one's judgment when it comes to bigger issues. So, for example, if in terms of my personal interest, this particular government will undertake a policy that will be injurious to my personal interest, it will be most difficult for me to see things from a wider perspective and to think in terms of Christian perspectives and say, well, I prefer this government because, well, it has policies that align with the Christian worldview, when that government, well, has another policy that is injurious to my own personal interest. And on that note, I can understand the pushback from many Christians who are of African descent, who are in the U.S., or who are people who are in the U.S. I was engaged in a conversation with a friend online, and we're chatting, and I mean, she had this very horrible and strong opinion about the new administration in the United States. And I said, look, my people are there. They are terrified of this man coming back to power. And well, I did not pursue it beyond that, because it was clear that they must have been terrified because perhaps they do not have their papers as intact as should be. Now, this is a moral dilemma of sorts, but truth be told, it's not that much of a dilemma. It's not that much of a dilemma, but you have to understand how consequential it will be for people who are in the United States or in any part of the world illegally. How consequential it will be for them to be deported. That's a big deal. It upsets a lot of things, and I mean, you cannot even begin to imagine the cost of the cost of that. So someone may say, well, you are far removed from it, so it's easy for you to say that in terms of political support, you want to look at the bigger picture, at what really matters, whether an administration is supportive of the Christian worldview or not. But that is truth. That's from the angle from which you must look at it. And for Nigeria, saying that the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is ready to welcome the estimated 3,690 Nigerians who have been ordered to leave the United States, that's a good thing. We do hope that the government indeed will make some provision for them and welcome them and rehabilitate them. I mean, that's a tough call. Even the people who are here have not been taken care of. But I mean, that's the reality of the world. Consequences follow our actions. I pray that the people who are impacted by these things will find solace somewhat. Will find a way out of the dilemma in which they have found themselves. This much we know, as people on the Lord's side, those who trust God, those who know the Lord. This much we know, that no situation is ever the end. As long as God is still in the picture, it is never the end. Even the situations that look so bleak, so much so that one would suppose that it is all dark and there is no way out of the darkness. Those who know the Lord God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, they know that it is never the end with him. So if anybody out there is impacted by these deportations, by the Trump administration in the United States, let that person trust his God and know that even in the dark, that the light can shine. And who knows, anybody who is the Lord's knows that wherever he or she finds himself, that is where God is. And his eyes run to and fro, not Nigeria, not the United Kingdom, not the United States. His eyes run to and fro the whole earth. He knows about you. I mean, who was surprised to know that God knows about her? Who in the Bible was surprised? Hagar, Sarah's servant. She was surprised. She was in the desert alone, abandoned with her baby, and the baby was thirsty, hungry, would have died. But for God's intervention, who spoke to her, and she said, "The God who sees me." And Hagar was the first person to name God as the God who sees me. If anybody is impacted by this deportation and is thinking that his or her life has been upended and will now amount to nothing, or if anybody is in another situation like that, let that person know that there is a God who sees, and whoever calls to him will experience his favor. Okay, we'll go to another story. Now, this story relates to Dele Farotimi. We engaged severally with this matter when it first came up. This is the issue relating to a book written by Mr. Dele Farotimi, in which book he mentioned a senior lawyer in Nigeria, Chief of Babalola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and stated in that book that this man, otherwise respected in the legal community and in Nigeria as a whole, that this man corrupted the judiciary, at least in one instance, by buying judgment for his client. Of course, Chief Babalola then made a report or complaint to the police. The police then arrested Mr. Dele Farotimi. Many people have described that arrest as an abduction because of the way it was carried out. I don't want us to reopen that chapter, but I think we have said all that needs to be said about it. When we first engaged with this story, we have condemned what the police did. Anyway, the development today is that the court has dismissed Chief Afe Babalola's defamation suit against Dele Farotimi. I'm taking this from People's Gazette. It says, court dismisses Afe Babalola's defamation suit against Dele Farotimi. According to the report, the Federal High Court, Ado-Ekiti Division, on Wednesday dismissed the defamation suit against activist Dele Farotimi. The prosecutor, Samson Osobu, said he filed a notice of discontinuance and withdrawal in accordance with Section 108 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 and prayed that the charge be struck out. He said, quote, the nominal complainant has expressed his desire to discontinue the case. And of course, talking about the nominal complainant, he was referring to Chief Afe Babalola. You know that in criminal prosecutions, the criminal case is always between the government or the state and the person who is accused. But for every crime, that you always find a complainant. There's a person who has been hurt. There's a person who has been injured. There's a person whose rights have been trampled on in a criminal fashion, who goes to the state, to the government, to the police, through the police to complain, and then the government then takes on the case. Oftentimes, because of the need to prioritize the use of government resources, when a complainant, the person who was directly injured by the alleged criminal action, when that person says, I'm no longer interested in pursuing this matter, usually the state will then withdraw the case, because what's the point if the person who was directly impacted by the alleged criminal action is no longer interested, or has forgiven the accused person, or has decided to just overlook it? Well, why would the government continue to put resources behind such prosecution? I mean, that's the thinking behind where a complainant says, okay, I want to let this case go, then the state would also withdraw it. Otherwise, but it's not duty on the state to withdraw in such a case. It is possible for a complainant to say, yes, this person has come to me, or we have discussed, and I do not want to pursue this matter any longer. It is possible for the state to say, no, there is a public interest there. And this happens many times in terms of rape and sexual assault, and of course murder as well, where the state will say there is a public interest, so much so that even if the complainant was no longer interested, the state would continue the case. But in this case, Chief Afe Babalola, of course, before the date, before that matter was withdrawn in court, before that, he had been visited by monarchs from his town and from some other Yoruba towns, and he had been prevailed upon to withdraw the matter. He has withdrawn the matter. That's the long and short of it. And what should we? I mean, how should we think about this? A number of things to think about. And before I express my own thought, I also want to mention something that Mr. Dele Farotimi's lawyer mentioned soon after the charges were withdrawn. According to this report from Punch newspaper, it says Farotimi's lawyer chides police as court strikes out cybercrime charges. And you must be wondering, well, why would his lawyer continue to chide the police? After all, the matter, the charges have been withdrawn. This report, I'm taking it from a paragraph from this report, says, however, Farotimi's lawyer, Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, senior advocate of Nigeria, described the discontinuation of the suit as a missed opportunity for the court to correct the police on the use of the Cybercrime Act. And so this is a very important point, because many people have made that point, that the law pursuant to which Mr. Dele Farotimi was arraigned before the Federal High Court is not one that should stand the test of our Constitution, and that the case would have given the court an opportunity to reevaluate the provisions of the Cybercrime Act and the specific sections of the Cybercrime Act pursuant to which Mr. Dele Farotimi was arraigned in court. Now, that opportunity has been missed, as rightly stated by Mr. Fushika, senior advocate of Nigeria. But some people will say, well, on the one hand, this matter has gone off the radar. Mr. Dele Farotimi can breathe easier now. He's a free man to all intents and purposes, because the other cases are just civil cases. Somebody may say, well, but the man has his freedom now. He's not going back. There's no threat of him being jailed. That should be a good thing. On the other hand, public interest persons will say, well, this is another missed opportunity for the court to make definite pronouncements on a vexing law such as the Cybercrime Act, because now that the opportunity has been missed, it is possible for the police to misuse or misapply that same law at some other point in the future. But these are my comments on this. Number one is that you remember when the Lord said to us, He said, make peace with your adversary quickly, because if you do not do so, we take you before the magistrate, and the magistrate will throw you in jail. And you find practical wisdom in the words of Jesus there when he said, make peace with your adversary quickly. It is one of the often cited scriptural passages to support out-of-court initiatives for settling disputes, whether civil or criminal. Where there is a complainant, in murder cases, usually there is no complainant like that, because somebody has been killed. So it is almost impossible to talk about reaching some form of settlement. But in many other cases, whether criminal or civil, it is possible for the aggrieved party and the party alleged to have committed the wrong to come to some understanding. And perhaps settle out of court and withdraw the matter from the formal litigation process in court. It's always a good thing, all other things being equal. And in this case, the main point is all other things being equal. But one of the interesting things about this particular matter is that there is no statement as to whether Mr. Dele Farotimi apologized to Chief Babalola, or whether he recanted of what he said about him, what he wrote about him in his book, right? The book is still in circulation. You can still buy it today. Mr. Dele Farotimi has not recanted of what he wrote. He has not apologized in any way to Chief Babalola or to the other persons mentioned there. So you should be asking yourself, why then did the chief withdraw the case? Why did he agree to withdraw the case? If he has not received any apology, if the book is still in circulation, why then did he withdraw the case? I think it has to do with something even more important to Chief Babalola. Now, there is this reality, there is this truth that sometimes when you go to battle, sometimes when you fight a point, sometimes when you want to trash out a dispute, even if you win, you lose. There are many cases like that, and wise people tend to know that so well, so much so that they choose their battles carefully. As the old wisdom says to us, you choose your battles carefully. There are some battles that if you should fight them, even if you win, you lose. That's what the Greek would call Pyrrhic victory, where although you have won, but you have lost something that is even much more valuable. In this case, Chief Babalola, was even right now, even for the fact that he engaged the police to behave in the way that the police behaved when Mr. Deportees was arrested. He has lost considerable prestige and standing in the legal community in Nigeria, and history will not be so kind to him in that respect. Of course, he has done so many other great and fantastic things that history will definitely record, but this will be a blot on his legacy. Before now, he was known as one of the advocates of non-criminalization of speech. In many parts of the world, that is the right thing to do. You do not criminalize speech. If a person has injured you by what the person has written or said, there should be civil remedies. And civil remedies are sufficient, we believe, to remedy any damages occasioned by wrongful speech in writing or orally. Mr. Chief Babalola himself, before now, has been a strong advocate of non-criminalization of speech, but now the police have always found a loophole in the Cybercrime Act, and Chief Babalola did not hesitate to employ that. That led to him losing a certain level of prestige and standing in the eyes of many people in the legal community and in the society as well. The second is that when it comes to defamation cases, libel cases, where a person is complaining that, look, this person has said or written something about me that reduces my standing in the eyes of right-thinking members of the society. There is a defense open to the person accused. The defense is truth, or the defense is that, oh, this person is not entitled to that reputation. What would have happened, right, if this case went to trial, is that Mr. Farotimi would have had the opportunity to dig up many things about Chief Babalola, to tell the court that although I wrote these things, although ordinarily speaking what I've written has the tendency to reduce him in the estimation of right-thinking members of society, but this man is not entitled to that reputation. He's not entitled to it at all. He's not entitled to any protection because he has done this and that before. And you see, even you, if you think that you have lived so uprightly, you don't want to be in a case like that where it is open to your adversary in court to dig up as many things as possible in your past to make a point. You don't want to be in a situation like that, and you find that if this case had gone to trial, nobody has any idea what could have been dug up just to make the point that Chief Babalola is not entitled to the reputation he was trying to protect when he made a complaint to the police. So it is usually wise, if possible, to settle with your adversary as quickly as possible. In this case, Chief Babalola has had to eat the humble pie. I mean, that's the clear reality of it, because in the absence of an apology from Mr. Farotimi, in the absence of Mr. Farotimi undertaking not to further sell the book, in the absence of him recanting of what he has written, Chief Babalola has won absolutely nothing. But I think what has prevailed is wisdom. He has decided to minimize the damage occasion to his standing, to his prestige, as a result of this episode. But you see, beyond that, I agree with Mr. Fushika SAN that indeed we have lost an opportunity to bring light to a number of pressing matters. Number one is the issue of corruption in the judiciary. One would have wanted to see this matter play out at trial and evidence brought in to show the scale, the existence, if it exists, and the scale, if it exists, of corruption in the judiciary. Because the longer we refuse to shine light on these things, the longer we will have to contend with the horrible consequences of corruption in the judiciary. Also, as Mr. Fushika mentioned, we have lost the opportunity for the court to make a definite pronouncement on the constitutionality of some sections of the Cybercrime Act and on whether it should apply to the criminalization of speech. All in all, I'm glad that Mr. Farotimi can breathe easier now. There are still some cases pending, civil cases. We do hope that many of them will be withdrawn or settled out of court as well. But let us bear in mind what our Lord said. You settle with your adversaries quickly. If it is possible, I just want to make peace as soon as possible, because you just never know how battles play out. whether you're talking about military battles, whether you're talking about disputes in court. You never know how things play out, and it's always wise to settle things before they actually fester and go out of control, because then there are cases where even if you are confident of winning, you may just find that although you have won, you have lost something that is even much more important. Okay, next I want to play. I want to talk about a number of things I saw on social media. Number one, I saw this graphic illustration of what is taking place now in the culture. Somebody posted. Okay, this was posted actually by Elon Musk himself, the man who is regarded as the richest man in the world today. Title of the graphic says "Number of genders between 4004 BC and 2020 AD." Think about that. How many years do you have there? Between 4004 BC, that is 4004 years before Christ. That's talking about the biblical calendar worldview. Talking about from the very beginning, if you compute it according to the Bible, about 4004 years before Christ, all the way to 2020. How many genders were recognized by humanity? 2. Then between 2020 and 2024, how many genders recognized by humanity, or by some part of humanity, by some vocal and influential portion of humanity? Almost 73. Think about that, 73. Almost 73. And then he now put yet another one, say present, that is 2025. How many genders now? 2. And of course, why are we reverting back to 2? Well, because of the election of Donald Trump, who pronounced at his inauguration that the government of the United States will now recognize only 2 genders. And you see, that pronouncement should not be taken lightly. Why? Because it has had repercussion on so many other organizations. As you know, many businesses exist just to make a profit. And recent events have shown that many of the owners of these businesses are just there, or rather would do whatever the government of the day wants them to do, because they just want to remain in business. They don't want to be able to operate and remain in business. So much so that, for example, before now, between 2021 and 2024, if you wanted to sign up for Facebook or Facebook Messenger, you would have been given a long list of options to choose from in terms of your gender. But soon after President Trump made that pronouncement, we understand from many reports that now it has reverted back to the 2 genders. What you have as a third one would be prefer not to say. Right. So, I mean, what's the point of this? Elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. Somebody has said that for us, from a Christian point of view, elections are not everything, but they amount to something. Elections have consequences. Just imagine that President Joe Biden had won this election, or Ms. Kamala Harris, or anybody on the left. You know how they would have used the exalted office of the President of the United States to perpetuate this foolishness about the existence of genders beyond the male and female created by God. Male and female created, He created them. That's what our Lord Jesus said. And thank God again that good sense has prevailed. And may we never forget that elections have consequences, even if we are not going to put all our hope and aspiration on the existence of election. Another thing I want to mention is I want to listen to this clip because it has far-reaching ramification for the way we think from Christian perspective. This is a clip from an interview granted by the Vice President of the United States, Mr. J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, he said this about love and the Christian concept. I want you to listen to it carefully, then I'll come back and engage more with it. It's a short clip. Listen to it.
But there's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders. That is no way to run a society. And I think the profound difference that Donald Trump brings to the leadership of this country is the simple concept, America first. It does.
Okay, I don't want to go into the Donald Trump and America First issue, but I want us to listen to that opening part again in terms of the order of loving people, ORDER, the order of loving. Is there an order to loving people? Is there an order to showing love? Is there are there stages? Is there a progression you need to follow in showing love to others?
But there's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem...
Okay, and you know what? This is so true that you find many people who do not think exclusively from Christian perspectives. You find that they do not follow that order that is stated. According to J.D. Vance, I want to ask you if you agree with him. According to him, the order for loving, for showing love, is that you start first with your family, and then your neighbor, your community, your own country and citizens, and then the whole world. But you find that those who don't think exclusively from Christian perspectives tend to not care about the people closest to them, but prefer to just love the whole world as an entity and say, look, you can show love to everyone, and then in the actual sense, you end up not loving anyone in particular. Now, there's a principle called the principle of subsidiarity in Christian ethics and Christian thinking. The principle of subsidiarity, we suggest that you should focus first on the people who are closest to you in terms of your Christian witness, number one. Also in terms of the authority you want the society to have over you. You want as much authority retained by yourself and people closest to you than giving that authority to the state. And these things, they work together. And of course, remember what Apostle John wrote as well. So how can you claim to love God when you have not even loved the person that is so close to you, your neighbor, who is close to you? I do agree with this Christian view that in terms of showing love, you want to start with your own family, the people who are closest to you. It is not possible for you to say you love and then you are loving the whole world or loving your country, maybe as a politician, but then you are not showing love to the people who are closest to you, members of your family, right? It is, and there are many people like that who outside they occupy exalted offices and they labor so admirably, even in a Christian fashion, to do well in their positions as politicians or as leaders in the church, but they do not have the reputation for being loving to members of their family, to those who are closest to them. So in terms of showing love, I do agree that it has to start. You have to be seen as a person who loves your family, who loves those who are closest to you, who love your neighbor that you see, who love your community, who love your fellow citizens, and then every other thing will take place. Because if you can love those who are closest to you, your family members, and then your neighbor and your community, where you're going to have love even for the stranger, right? For the stranger, it is not wrong to love the stranger, but the point is that you must also love the person who is not a stranger first. You must be able to love everyone, and if you love only the stranger, or if you love only the artificial entity called the whole world, say I love the whole world, but then in your own personal life it is not evident that you love those who are closest to you, then there is a problem there. There is a big problem. I mean, the same principle applies to Christian witness. You want to ask yourself, in terms of Christian witness, do the people who are closest to you, do they know? Would they say that this brother is a Christian? If they're not able to say it, but the people who are outside would say it, then there's something wrong. And there's something absolutely wrong about that. So these things are important for us to understand when we engage different worldviews and different different worldviews and different sorts of philosophies about how to approach different issues in the world. You want to ask yourself first: this person, this action, this policy, is it loving to those who are closest to me? If it will only buy you accolades outside, but it does not show love to those who are closest to you, it's not a Christian. It's not a Christian thing, and that's the reason why you find that many people just want to be celebrated outside. They want to appear as good as possible outside. I mean, that is pharisaical. That is hypocritical, and one of the major sins that Jesus preached against during his ministry: hypocrisy. And at the end of the day, those who abandon their families, those who abandon those who are closest to them, but then focus on the world at large, focus on being seen as good, or even focus on being good to the world at large, they are, in a sense, hypocritical, because these are people who would just want to be celebrated outside, but then when it actually matters, they are not rising to the occasion. And do you know why this matters? Because the more difficult thing to do is to love the people who are closest to you. It is easy to love the whole world. It is easy for me to stand on a pulpit or to occupy a high position and support policies that are benevolent to all the world, to all the people under my charge, to everybody, and to talk about love for brother, love for strangers, love for this and love for that. That is easy to do. The more difficult thing is to love the person who is closest to me. If my spouse offends me, to forgive. If my child offends me, to forgive. If I have to make sacrifices for my friend, to make that sacrifice. If I have to make sacrifices for my neighbor, to make that sacrifice. That's the more difficult thing. To love the people who are closest to us. It is easier to love the world at large and say, no, love for this, love for that, love for all, love for all, love for all. But when it comes to actually showing love to the people who are closest to us, where actual personal sacrifice is involved, then you find that it becomes not as easy. So I do agree with J.D. Vance, and I hope that this will also shape our thinking when we come across many issues of this nature. Thank you so very much for joining us this morning again for On the Lord's Side, Christian Perspectives on News and Current Event. I hope to be with you again tomorrow by the grace of God. Whatever you do today, please remain firmly on the Lord's side. God bless you.
You are listening to GospelBellsRadio.com, the Christian internet radio with a mission to engage the culture with the mind of Christ. Keep listening and invite others too. God bless you.
Engaging the culture with the mind of Christ.
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 Engaging the culture with the mind of Christ. You are listening to GospelBellsRadio.com, the Christian internet radio with a mission to engage the culture with the mind of Christ. Keep listening and invite others too. God bless you.